So this weekend was a complete disaster. I had a whole display on the water.
What did you do?
It's getting to be lobster season, so I got my little 13 whaler out and I was going to go out and make sure everything was okay. And I did what you should never do with a boat, and I let it sit for like 6, 7 months. So take the boat to the ramp, put it in the water, get the engine started. It was a little hard to start because it's been sitting, obviously, with the fuel, but got it started and everything was running. Drove it all the way to my house, put it on the dock, and no problems. Sitting there getting ready on the boat, loading the boat and doing this and doing that, and the engine just shuts off.
Oh
So
no.
now I'm like, oh, great. Sun's now starting to come out. I'm losing my shades and I got to troubleshoot the engine. And working on the engine, go over pretty much everything. And the engine just lost spark. And so I tested down and it actually needs a stator. So now the boat's stuck in the dock and I end up having to have my neighbor help me. And here we are, we paddle it from my dock back to the ramp. And my neighbor has a renter there. So they're all fishing off of their dock, watching me and my neighbor paddle this boat from my house
Look
all
at
the way
that
back to the
guy.
ramp. Oh man, it like I said, it was a display for sure.
Oh, that's great. You got an audience and everything watching you paddle that. How far did you have to go to get back to the ramp?
I mean, it wasn't too far. Like, it's not a far ride. It's so that my house is right here, and just around this like channel is another ramp that we were actually fortunate enough to be able to use. And so there's also a bridge there, so the current comes in. So we actually paddle out to the current, and once we hit the current, it really kind of drove us the rest of the way. But it was still, yeah, I
Were-
mean,
Did you
it
have
was
your
it
hat
was
pulled
still.
down and hiding your yourself so nobody knew it was you?
Yeah, I don't know. I had my sombrero on for sure, my straw hat out there in the sun. I
Yeah.
try and stay out of it, but no. What I should have done is turn the radio on and turn it up real loud, and then hey, bring attention to
Yeah.
myself.
Hey, we're just enjoying the day, man. This is good. It's better than a paddleboard. We got it.
For sure, that's too funny. So
What were you
yeah, it
getting your boat
was.
ready for?
Yeah, lobster season, man. So it's getting ready to be mini season and then open lobster season, and I've got a little 13-foot Boston whaler that we built into a bully netter, and so I was just getting that out to finish up a couple things. And actually, there's a lot of videos that I've got that I haven't made yet on that boat, just because I was waiting for lobster season. I want to take it out and get some video of doing some bully netting on it before I make those videos and put that
So is
stuff
there
out.
is there a
So
new how to replace the stator video coming out?
I was hot and frustrated, so I didn't even record any of the troubleshooting or any of that. I was just like, man, I got to get my boat going.
There's some
And
behind the
so
scenes
I don't
stuff
have
that
any of
nobody
that.
needs to see. Yeah, that's good. So when does
Yeah,
lobster
yeah.
season kick off?
So the last Wednesday and Thursday of July
Okay.
is what they call mini season, and then August 1st is opening of your regular season.
Okay. So you're heading out. What do you do? Free dive for those? You scuba dive? How does that work?
Well, yeah, you dive for them during the day, regular. You can, I mean, commercial guys will trap them, but you mainly just dive for them. Or you can go out at night, and at night they'll get up on the flats and they'll walk along the grass and they'll like migrate, kind of like I mean, I don't know if migrate's the right word, but they'll walk around and move around and they'll eat and feed and
Okay.
move around. So you can get up on the flats and like a bowling netter, like a little boat with lights down in the water from the front, and you can see them walking, and you can just net them from the
Oh,
boat
really?
at nighttime. Yep, it's really fun.
Okay. How many can you get?
Per person recreationally, you can get 6
Okay.
in Monroe County, and I'm pretty sure the rest of Florida you can get 12.
Okay.
So like if you're any other county besides Monroe, you can get 12 lobster per person. But down in Monroe and the Keys, I mean, it's a little bit different because there's they're a lot easier. They're a lot more close together, and they're 8 feet of water, and people just go down there and just take so many that they had to
Oh, yeah.
drop the number down, to keep the population up.
I've never done it. It looks like it would be a lot of fun, but it looks a little crazy too. Is it?
Mini season is definitely insane. Like mini season, I don't even I haven't been out in a mini season. Well, bowling netting. I have gone out bowling netting during mini season, but I haven't gone out actually diving in mini season for a few years now, just because it gets so hectic out there. I mean, you look on the water at like 5 in the morning, there's 1,000 boats just running through the channels, just going out into the bay. I mean,
Really?
there's so many boats. It's a free for all. I mean, it's gotten to the point where it's actually even dangerous, where people come down that have never even driven a boat before or operated a boat, and they go rent a boat, they take their family out, and now you got people in the water, and then people that don't know how to operate a boat trying to drive around them, and mistakes happen. People leave the boat in gear, and now the current's taking the boat, the current's taking the people. People are climbing up the back with an engine in
Oh,
gear.
geez.
And I mean, it's almost every other year or so that there's actually fatality, where
Oh,
someone gets ran over by a boat or hit by a prop, or some kind of accident happens. And so I haven't been out in a regular mini season for a few years outside of bully netting.
so you do that at night?
Yeah, and that's at night. Yep.
Okay.
So you can go midnight on Wednesday, um, on the last Wednesday of July, midnight. You can go out and bully net, and then you can bully net all the way up until midnight of Thursday night.
Yeah, I've never done it, but it looks awesome, and they look like they're pretty delicious from what I see online.
Oh, for sure, for sure. I mean, I like catching them more than I like eating them, to be honest with you. But yeah, they're definitely delicious. I do like a lobster for
So
sure.
you dive down and what'd you say, 8 to 10 feet of water?
Yeah, a lot of places in the bay that we go are like, there's just different places in the bay that have like holes. So in the bottom on the seafloor, or bay floor, whatever you want to call it, there's different like holes and ledges and stuff. And during the day, they hide in those holes and stuff to for protection. And you can, if you know all the spots or have spots or numbers or whatever, you you know dive down there and you just snorkel down there. If you go deeper, then a lot of people do dive for them. But most of the time, if you're in 8 feet, 10 feet of water, snorkeling is fine. You can
You,
go down there and have enough time to take a little stick and get them to come out of the hole. And then, you net them and bring them up.
that sounds awesome. That sounds awesome. I need to put that on my on list of things to do here. So let's get to
Hmm.
the first question here. We pulled these right off your channel and a couple off my channel as well. But this is from FeralCat5860. Got a question. Bought a boat. The gel coat or paint has not been taken care of. If you wipe your hand across the boat in most areas, the white paint comes off on your hand like rust dust, but white paint dust. Can I try to polish the boat, or what needs to be done? Any help would be appreciated. So, first of all, what is that white dust? Explain that a little bit.
A lot of it's oxidization, but it's also just the gel coat gotten old and dried out. And so it's, flaking. It's not flaking off, but it's, you're wiping, you know, gel coat and oxidization off of the boat
Yeah,
just from age.
yeah. A lot of people don't realize that gel coat dries out over time, or
Hmm.
if it's not taken care of the right way, if you're not waxing it and protecting it from the sun and all the
Right.
elements and the salt down there for sure.
So what he can do, it all depends on how bad. Also, well, he said it's white, so white's good. That's
The
a
easiest
lot
of the
easier.
jobs, yeah.
Yeah, for sure, compared to like a black boat, or any kind of color, like a dark color.
Yep.
Those are going to be harder to get back, because then you can, like, if it's so bad where you got to wet sand it, then you can wet sand through that color, and then you'll have faded, spotchy, spots on the boat if you have to wet sand it. But pretty much what you're going to do, if it's that point, he might be able to get away with a cutting, where you just do a cutting compound, and then wax and polish, buff the whole, 1 2 3. But if it's bad enough, wet sand, cutting compound, buffing, waxing,
The
polishing.
Yeah, and it's a matter of how great do you want it to look, and how much time
Hmm.
and effort do you want to, and effort
Oh
being the
yeah.
effort being the key right there. How much
Yep,
sweat
for
do you want to put
sure.
into it?
Yeah, because you can spend 2 days and running a buffer, like you're gonna wear yourself out. But I mean, it'll look great when you're done. For most boats, even when they get that way, yeah, if you put in the effort and do the whole process of the wet sand all the way to the polish, then I mean, you'll make the boat shine
Yeah,
again.
yeah, and the pay attention to staying in the shade. Get the boat in the
Yep.
if it's hot wherever you are, feral cat. I'm not sure where you are, but if it's hot, keep that sun off it. Do it under a shade. Do it indoors if you can, because you'll be
Mm-hmm.
working your butt off, and it'll also make it a little bit easier too.
And you also, then once you do it, then depending on where your boat at, how many times a week do you use the boat, where do you keep the boat, you can get a cover to cover it. You could also, if you use it pretty regularly, you might need to reapply, re-wax it every 3 months, 6 months, depending on where you're at and how you use the boat, to keep that from getting to that point again.
Yeah, because it's not just a one time. Oh, I brought it back to life. Now I'm done. It's you got to. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
there's gel coat needs maintenance just like everything else. You got to keep it clean. You got to get the salt
Mm-hmm.
off it if you're in salt. You got to keep a good coat of wax on it. What do you wax your boats down there if they're sitting in the sun? If they're not indoors or stored in the shade?
Just a regular 3M wax.
Yeah. How often do you do it?
Most of my boats are so old that I've never, I never, I don't really worry about it until it's time to sell it. Then I'll do the whole, you know, cut it. I'll do the whole process just to bring it back. But I'm lazy, I guess you'd say, in that aspect.
You work so
I'm more
hard
of
on
a
everybody else's boats that like the cobbler and his kids have no shoes. What's that story?
yeah, yep, yeah, exactly. I'm more of a go use my boat, bring it back to the dock, tie it up, and I'm tired.
They are a lot more fun if you don't have to do all that extra work to keep them in great shape. But I like that approach. Like I've got an older boat, I don't need to worry about it as much. Keep the motor running, make sure
Hmm.
I get back safe every time, and the other
Yep.
stuff can be done right before I sell it.
Looks like our next one, you got Bob Joy 7653 says, I'm considering an engine upgrade to a new Merc 300 Pro XS. Can you tell me if the engine comes with the hydraulic steering module that mounts to the engine, most likely a C Star Pro, as I read that it's standard on that engine? Um, I mean, I don't really know about that. Do you know anything about those, or?
The Pro XS, I would assume a that big a horsepower, you're going to be power steering, and yeah, you've got. I would assume it's hydraulic power steering, but I don't know for
Hmm.
sure on that one.
Yeah. Yeah, I know, like a Verado, if you get a Verado, that one does come with a steering cylinder, but I don't know about the Pro XS if it comes with a cylinder or not. Um, I'm not sure. It's definitely, hydraulic steering,
Yeah, yeah,
but whether or not it comes with that, I'm not 100% sure.
yeah. That there also another question that along the lines of steering that came from my channel about digital steering versus our power steering. Are they the same?
No, they're not. They're not the same for sure. But digital electronic steering. I mean, that's for the most part. I guess it kind of depends on what brand you're talking about. So, like, Yamaha's got a fully electric steering system, completely digital electric steering system, whereas a lot of other ones will have like they call it electro hydraulic steering. So it's still got hydraulic steering cylinder and pump, but it's a power steering pump. So no, they're not the same. I mean, a lot of the digital steering systems with joystick and stuff, Optimus 360, Mercury, and then some of Yamaha's, well, not really any of Yamaha's, because they don't make that stuff anymore, but they used to. It would be an electro hydraulic where your steering helms, the joystick, all that stuff is electronic, and then there's a computer that controls the steering pump to run it back and forth wherever you use it. So it's kind of like a hybrid system, I guess you'd say.
Yeah, and it really, I mean, it's the is there a difference in the handling? It's really more about how easy do you want to be able to turn the turn the motor? Do you
Hmm.
need the full power? Do you is just the main or mechanical? I guess is the right word way to phrase it. Steering, if it's a 30, you might be okay, but
Yeah.
the 300, hey, that's going to put
Yeah.
some torque
Yeah.
on you.
Yeah. Exactly. I think you definitely. horsepower is definitely a factor in there. If you got like a 30 horse, yeah, you might just have a tiller handle on it. You don't really need hydraulic or anything. I mean, mechanical cable is still going to be fine for those littler engines. So, yeah, I think horsepower is definitely going to play a factor
Yeah,
in there.
we've got it easy these days. I mean, back in the day when we were kids, I remember my dad, we had just the mechanical steering on an 85 on a small little
Hmm.
lake. He pulling us kids around skiing. I'm sure he had to just be working his butt off all the time, getting that thing turned around every 5 minutes.
For sure.
But let's move on to the next one. This is Eric Elmer, 5289. I've got an '04 Optimax. Took the boat in, and they said the Schrader valve there was the Schrader valve. There was no pressure, fuel pressure coming from that valve on the vapor separator tank. Do you think it might be the first pump, the low pump, or the high pump, or a different problem? Thank you.
Well, I mean, if you got no fuel pressure on the Schrader valve on the VST, then yeah, that high pressure pump's not producing any pressure. You're not getting anything from the high pressure pump. So most likely it's your high pressure pump's gone bad. But at the same time, if the VST is empty, then it won't have any fuel to pressurize. So you want to make sure that the VST is not empty. And then, yeah, most likely it sounds like it. I mean, if you got no fuel pressure on your Schrader valve on the VST, then the high pressure pump's not making any pressure because you should have, you know, like 45 psi or something there on the VST.
If you were looking at that, where do you start? Do you start at the fuel source coming in, or do you start somewhere else because it's likely going to be this? How do you kind of zero in on where to diagnose those problems?
I would start right there with that Schrader valve. So, first thing, make sure you got fuel pressure. And if you got fuel pressure, you can kind of move on down the line this way, like towards the injectors and stuff like that. Or if you don't have fuel pressure, then yeah, I would crack the drain screw on the VST and see if fuel comes out to make sure there's fuel in the VST. And if there's nothing comes out, then okay, yeah, I done hooked the hose going to the VST and then turn the key on, or depending on the engine model, crank it or whatever, and see if the low pressure pump is putting fuel into the VST. And then if it is, then yeah, open up that VST and look at that pump. Or if it's not, then start working my way back down the line. Okay, is the low pressure pump not getting power? Is it not turning on? Is it a diaphragm pump? Go to the primer bulb, and work your way all the way back to the fuel tank from component to component. And as you go from the next one down the line, you'll find whichever one ain't working right.
I love watching your videos and just seeing you methodically go. I don't know which one I was watching the other day. Methodically go from, okay, we're going to start here, and next, okay, that's good. It's kind of like a tree diagram. You're like, okay, this one's good, so we go here. If that's not good, we go here. I mean, that
Mm-hmm.
methodical way that you approach diagnosing issues is I don't have that in me, that level of detail. So I'm like, God, he's got it, like he's got it figured out. He knows what he's doing. Maybe you've worked on a few engines before. I don't know.
It's just work the process, work the process. You go from one thing at a time. That's what I'm big on, is
Did you go
one
to
thing at
tech
a
school, or
time.
did you just have learned this like as an apprentice?
Mainly growing up around boats, and then yeah, going to a tech school, and then working at a marina for 10 years
Okay, just been
or over
through
10
been
years.
through many scenarios, seen it since you were a kid.
Yep, yep,
My dad
yep.
just let me hold the flashlight, and then I never got it at the right angle, so
Uh-huh,
I
yep,
didn't
for
get to learn
sure.
too much. Brandon Williams 1720 says, and this may have come from another video. I don't know if you know which one it is. Another tip when pulling the I'm assuming that's the NEMA cable through
No,
would be
I
to
think he
use,
means mechanical cable.
what was it?
I think he's talking about mechanical cable, like a shift and throttle
Oh,
cable.
okay. Would be to use a 10/32 coupling nut, attach the new cable to the old cable using the coupling, very slim setup, and won't pull off. So you
Hmm.
remember that video?
Yeah, I think that video is going to be changing out shift and throttle cables on a boat.
Okay.
And yeah, I do have a 10/32 coupling nut. The only I guess you'd say a disclaimer there is going to be where if you have the like cable, so your mechanical cable's got an end like this long on it, right?
Okay.
And then on the other side, it's going to have a thing right here that goes in and out, and that's the cable. Now, if you take two of these that are this long and you put them together, and now it's this long, now when you're pulling that through a rigging tube, you need to make sure that you have enough space coming out of the rigging tube to make a bend, and you don't, do one of these numbers and bend any part of that, cable, because then now your cable's not going to be working right because the end's going to be bent, and then if you bend it back, sometimes you can't get it back to run smooth like a brand new cable. So that's, I guess, the only thing you need to watch out for is making sure that there's enough space on the end of the rigging tube to pull that cable out without bending it, since it's going to be, this long and they're attached
Yeah.
together.
Is that I learned that the hard way lesson, or is that I learned that from somebody else lesson?
I think a bit of both.
I like if you
I
could
think
make
a
it
bit of
somebody
both.
else's lesson that you learned it from. That's the right way to go. But very,
Yep, yep.
very seldom is that always the way it works out. So, all right, let's go. LAX Gators says, great video. I have the same boat. Are you finding that these boats need more than one house battery? I've got a Yellowfin 26 too, and the Evo 19 starts to dim out after a few hours of running, I assume from low voltage, because if I switch to the emergency parallel, it brightens back up.
Yeah, I would say you definitely. I mean, you kind of got either three issues going on there. Most boats only need one. Well, I guess you can't say most boats, because now these boats that are anything bigger than like a 26, they're packed full of so many electronics that, yeah, you might need more than one house battery. But I mean, even that 26 Yellowfin, because a 26 Yellowfin with an Evo 19 has probably got two subwoofers and 8 speakers and a 1K transducer, spotlights,
Oh yeah.
all these lights, underwater lights, all this stuff. So you're going to be consuming a lot of power. But as long as you aren't consuming more for your battery than you need, then one, the battery could be going bad, or you got a charging issue, which is possible. But it sounds like if you switch it over to parallel and then everything starts, if it brightens back up, then yeah, either your house battery is starting to go bad or it's not charging properly. So I'd look at one of those two things before going through the effort of adding a second battery. But
Right.
a lot of these boats, once you get up to 28, 30 feet, a lot of them do have more than one house battery because, start adding subs and speakers and amps and radars
Yeah,
and
it's no longer you just
everything
got
that.
an AM FM 8-track tep player and and your nav lights. Like, what else could
Yeah.
we put on this helm that's going to make this a little easier? So,
Oh, for
um,
sure.
I watched another one of your videos where you were putting in battery switches, I think, and you
Mm-hmm.
mentioned a couple things in there about you upgraded the cable. I don't know if
Yep.
what you went from what to what, but you were also talking about the things that can keep your batteries from getting charged up completely. Is there something like
Mm-hmm.
that could be in play there?
By and large, most boats they come with the right gauge wire, to supply power to your electronics and all your stuff, or your house battery from your charging system. Most of that, the gauge is done from the factory. But as boats get older, people start adding stuff. They add the stereo, they add the radar, the autopilot, the power steering pump, like they add all that stuff. Now you might, if you've got a 6 or 8 gauge wire feeding your house stuff, that might not be enough, and you might need to um, give a bigger cable to supply that amperage
Yeah.
to power all that stuff. So
You've never seen any crazy add-ons that isn't exactly how you would do it, have you? When it comes to electrical,
oh, yeah, almost all the boats,
like anything that's over 5 years old, I'm guessing you're like, what is going on back there?
Yeah, there's usually been someone in there. Um, I think, I mean, that's all kind of part of the deal, though. With a boat, that's just part of the deal. I think probably the number one pet peeve of most people is going to be um, people that don't have flush cutters and they just cut the zip ties and like leave the little end on there to
Yeah.
slice your hand up when you go in there. It's like, if you don't have flush cutters, don't even cut it. Just leave the tie like the way it is. Like, that's better. That's better. Leave it.
That's
Like,
a
don't
man
cut
that's
it.
been cut more than 100 times, probably
Yep.
more
Oh,
than that.
I mean, it's to the point where I don't even reach my hand and I just grab my flush cuts and I go in there and I cut the ends off before I even start. Like, I'm
You
like,
clean
no,
them
I'm not
up
doing that.
yourself. That's great.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, I mean, you get a gash down the side of your hand. You're like, no, I'm not. No. Now you're bleeding all over the boat, and
Oh
it's
yeah.
like, I don't want to get everything dirty. I got to clean that up.
See, that's something you learn from experience right there. You can't learn that from a book. That's not being taught in tech school. That's not being taught anywhere. But actually getting cut.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's probably a bigger pet peeve than having to figure out, what kind of electronic blunder somebody's made in a boat.
Is that one of the hardest things to diagnose? Is the electrical issues? It seems like there's so many things that could, other than maybe a fuel issue, there could be so many options or so many issues that could be causing the problem.
I don't know. I mean, it's all, it's all what it is. You just kind of go with whatever they say. If the complaint is this, then you go look at that system, and then you just you work the process of the system. So I don't know if one thing's harder than another thing. It's just a matter of figuring it out.
Yeah.
So
Do
you
you
kind
do
of
you, you
just
love that, don't you? That do you like the
yeah,
figuring
yeah,
out
I
part,
do.
solving the problem?
Yeah, I do enjoy the diagnostic part of it because it's you got to figure it out. Um, it's a different thing altogether though because when it comes to billing, that's a whole new thing because diagnostics is kind of like, well, you don't know, so
Well, yeah, you got
that
to
can be a
balance. You're
little.
like, I can just go fix the thing that I think it might be and spend
Hmm.
time and parts money there, or I can spend an hour starting here and tracing it to there and make sure when I give the boat
Right.
back to them, it's the right thing that I fixed and the only parts that had to be done.
Yeah, I think that I definitely agree with that more than anything. It's definitely going to be quality, and I don't want it coming back for the same thing. Like, you don't want a boat to come back with the same issue. Like, when you get it back, that's it's fixed.
Yeah.
It's not,
Yeah, that would be, I would say, as a boat owner too, that is probably one of the biggest complaints is I uh, took my boat in for this, and now I'm bringing it back for that same thing. That
Yeah,
oh,
that
and
get
but the
frustrating.
other thing, does this ever happen to you? You work on something that's a little older, you fix the thing, and but then a new thing breaks after that, and
Hmm.
then you get, hey, what happened? It was working fine when I dropped it off.
Oh yeah, I mean, I've seen that process play out enough. I mean, it's to the point where like we don't even really work on two strokes anymore for that
Oh,
exact
really?
reason. Down here, yeah. I mean, up north it's a little bit different because the freshwater and the temperatures and the slower, like not slower, but the less boating season. Whereas down here, all year round's a boating season, but yeah, a lot of two strokes. That's exactly the scenario that plays out. And you'll talk to some people and they'll, be cussing this mechanic, that mechanic, and this mechanic. And you're the fourth mechanic that they're going to come on. And that's it. They got this problem. You'll go on, you'll fix that one problem. And then, they'll go use the boat 2, 3 times and then boom, something else, you fix the stator, then the rectifier regulator, the trigger, and the ignition coil go bad. And it's like it gives the same problem, but it's just this component failed. You fix this one, then that one fails, then that one fails. And it's every other time they use the boat, something's failing. And so now it's kind of like we don't even, we really don't even work on them anymore because of that. Because I know I'm just going to be the next mechanic that you're mad at
We're
because your
moving on to
engine
number
keeps breaking.
5.
Yep. I'll be number 5. And then you're going to go to the next person. And, it's unfortunate because it's down here in the heat and the use. Some of the 25, 30-year-old engine just isn't as reliable. Like, I mean, mine's my bowling netters. That's a prime example. That's a 2010 4-stroke, and the stator just went bad. Out of the blue, like just so it's more prominent on the 25, 30-year-old engine,
Yeah.
And so
Well, that's a
it's kind of
harsh
like,
that's a harsh life, man, to be in salt all the time.
hmm
And yeah, and like you said, you didn't run it for 6 8 months.
mm
That salt's just, I assume the salt air down there is just thick, and I
yeah.
mean that's going to damage everything just sitting. It's getting,
Yep, it's just as harming, sitting as it is. It's better to just run it than it is to let it sit, because when it's running, it's, getting fuel, getting oil, getting lube, it's moving, like parts are moving. But then when it sits, now all those parts are not moving, they're not lubed, they're not, no grease, no nothing. So it's kind of like that harsh salt air just, it makes stuff rust, and then you go to use it. Now that rusty part, you're putting stress on it, and boom, it breaks.
yeah, yeah. I did my program, the Confident Coastal Boater. The captain that I had to help me with that. He used to say the only thing that saltwater doesn't damage is saltwater. That was one of
Yeah.
his favorite sayings. I'm like, yeah, you're probably right. Being a freshwater guy, I don't think about it as much. I've got,
Hmm.
we're 3 hours from Charleston and do some saltwater boating, but it's a different animal. And then all the way down where you are, what did you say? It's a little bit saltier down there than up north.
Yeah. Oh, I would say so. I don't know if you would say it's saltier. I think just the mineral compound, or I guess you'd say the minerals that are in the water, are much more harsh
Okay.
on the engine. The closer you get to the equator, the harsher it gets. So, I mean, I'm not a chemist, so I don't really know if that's really the right thing to say, but I know that, yeah, the water, the minerals or the salt, or whatever it is, the makeup of the water is a lot harsher than it is, cold salt water in New York.
Yeah, whatever it is, it's causing you to paddle your whaler in.
Yeah, I know, right?
I'm not sure why I had to do that, but I did because
Yeah.
of the salt.
Yeah, it's kind of like this next guy's question, or well, his comment. Dave Hagiag 4702. He says, "Do you use 304 or 316 stainless steel bolts on the transom?" And I mean, for the most part, everything in the marine is 316. Like, if 316 is not available, then yeah, 304. But um, by and large, pretty much everything marine is 316 stainless steel.
Yeah, it's gonna rust at some point. So the
Mhm.
better you use, the better material you use, the longer lasting it's gonna be, for
For
sure. Do you
sure.
use, speaking of that, do you use OEM parts most of the time? Like, is it worth it?
Oh yeah, I mean, I try and always use an OEM before an aftermarket, but I mean, right now you kind of got a problem where stuff's not even
Yeah.
available. Like, you can't even, like, there's some manufacturers that can't even get oil filters right now. So,
Is it still
like,
going on?
oh yeah, I mean, it's I don't understand it, but I do know that there are some manufacturers that, yeah, you can't even get an oil filter right now. And um, yeah, if, you want to do a service on a boat, and it's like you can't even change oil. Like, we can do the whole service, but we can't put an oil filter on there because we can't get one.
That's
So,
crazy.
like, it's pretty rough. But um, yeah, I would definitely say OEM,
Okay. Yeah, I didn't realize
when you can.
there was still that big of a, or still that type of supply chain issues. I thought we were through most of it. I knew there's steering system issues that I've heard of.
Yeah, I think for the most part we are through it, but it's gonna, like, there's just hit and miss things that are completely random. Like, how'd you make that?
Yeah.
Like, how'd you drop that ball? Like, how'd you drop? Like,
The one
you
thing
ran
that
out of
people
oil
actually do.
filters.
Let's go to ceremonial guardsman. So what kind of paint is it if it's flaking off? Recently bought a 123 with bottom paint flaking off all over the place.
Uh oh.
This was from another one of your videos. I think, was it bottom paint that you were doing, a bottom paint video, or
Yeah, I think that one came from a body paint video, I'm guessing. But yeah, no, I mean, Hunter, I like a Hunter 123. That's a nice boat. But yeah, the bottom paint flaking off all over the place. There's kind of mainly two. things there that'll make that happen over time. And one, it either didn't get prepped right, where they didn't sand the bottom and then just painted it, and the paint didn't have a good surface to adhere to. If it's being painted on fresh gel coat that has wax in it, then the paint will flake off because it can't stick. Or another thing is that depending on how many layers of paint are on the boat, um, there's basically two types of bottom paints, whereas you got a hard paint or an ablative paint. Hard paint is basically stays on. It's, I guess you can say, permanent. And then there's ablative, and ablative is made to, wipe off over time. So over time, it'll slowly, as you run the boat, it'll slowly come off of the boat. So if somebody, let's say the boat was painted with hard paint, then someone put ablative on there, and then someone put hard paint on over the ablative, now all of a sudden you're going to have all these spots popping off because the ablative is made and designed to wear off of the boat, whereas the hard paint's not. So, and unfortunately, you might have to just sand all that off, or pressure wash it, power, or sandblast it off. Um, that's unfortunate, but I mean, if it was my boat and the boat lives in the water with the bottom paint, I would just keep up by painting it every year, and not worry about it. No one's ever going to see the bottom of your boat.
Yeah, as long as
Unless you're
as long as you're
swimming under the
protecting
boat.
it. Yeah, as long as it's doing its job of protecting the gel coat and the hull, you're in good shape. And if you were to take the, hey, let's sandblast it off and let's redo the whole thing, it's a project, especially if you're
Oh, it's
doing
a
it in the
big project.
July and August.
And it's going to get expensive too, because once you sandblast it, now you got to go in and fix all the. I mean, I guess if you're going to repaint it, it doesn't have to be perfect, but once you sandblast it, you're going to have all kinds of chips and other, I guess you call scarring,
Yeah.
in the gel coat from the sandblaster. So you're going to have that repair, and then the paint. So, I mean, yeah, as long as it's not growing barnacles on the bottom of your boat, then I'll just paint it and not worry about, you know, that aspect
Yeah,
of it.
that 3 seconds when you get up on plane, somebody might see it, but that's about it. Just
Mm-hmm.
let it roll. Have you done a lot of bottom paint jobs?
Oh yeah, I mean, bottom paint's easy though. You just, as long as you get it prepped right, recoats are even more easy. But yeah, you just tape tape the tape line and roll it on there. It's, it's a thick paint, so it's not like, you're not you're not playing Picasso down there. It's the bottom of the boat. You're just making sure you get it on there and you're not missing any spots, and two coats, and that's pretty much it. That's the I mean, bottom paint is to keep growth from growing on your boat because it lives in the water.
Yeah.
So, you pretty much only see this much of the bottom paint that's above the water line. Everything else is on the bottom of the boat, and making sure that you don't grow a bunch of barnacles, which will affect the performance of the boat.
Yeah. It's doing its job, doing its job. I used to
Mm-hmm.
when I first like in the freshwater, most boats don't live in the water unless you're talking about a big cruiser, but I was always
Right.
explained to it, it's like a bar of soap where it's designed to the layer keeps coming off a little bit at a time
Yeah.
to keep all
Yeah. It's a
that
good
growth off
analogy
there.
for ablative. Mm-hmm.
So, all right, let's go to Bruce D. James. Says another great video. I was wondering what was used to strengthen the transom. Were those cylinders of fiberglass that were glassed into the transom, or something else? Thank you. Thank you
Um.
very much. That's what that is.
Oh yeah, yeah. Thank you very much. Yep, yep, yep. No, they're foam. It's a foam core piece that the fiberglass guy just glassed on there. Cut them to, be like a bracing,
Okay.
and then they soak them in resin and then glass them to the transom. And once that resin dries, it becomes just a solid. It's a coring material. It's a foam coring material. Pretty much what every boat's made out of for the most part. I would say 80-90% of boats out there foam cored.
Yeah, the composites that they're composite is basically just two materials, and
Mm-hmm.
you get the best of both attributes, I guess. So you've got the
Mm-hmm.
lightweight and the buoyancy of the foam, of the styrofoam, and then you've got the rigidity and strength, I guess, of the resin. you put those two
Yep.
together, and I mean that's a pretty good combination for a boat that you want to float and, and you want to stay strong. That's pretty good.
Yep.
So
Yeah. I mean, I definitely say probably 80, 90%. I don't think there's too many. There might be a couple manufacturers out there that are still using wood as coring, but by and large, most brands are some sort of a composite build, whether that's Kusa or um, foam or resin mold or something.
it's just a great application for the boat because it's not going to rot. Even if you drill into it, unlike any type of wood, Kusa. Except what's Kusa made out of?
It's like I mean, it's a type of glass. It's a glass composite with. I'm not sure what the black stuff is in there, but it's mainly glass.
Okay.
It's a lot of it's some sort of a glass makeup of composite. I'm not sure what the build is of
Aaron,
it.
I'm sorry for that question. That was uncalled for. Put you on the spot like that. You already told me
No,
you're not a chemist. You're like, listen, I'm not a
yeah, no,
chemist. I'm not a geologist. I know boats. Leave me alone.
yeah, I'm a mechanic,
Yeah.
but I mean, no, that's good though because that there's going to be someone out there that knows the answer to
That's
that, and
true. That's true.
they'll tell us about it.
Yeah,
So
I love
that's
it.
good for sure.
I always say, hey, I know a lot about boats, but there's way more about boats that I don't know than I do know. That's
Mm-hmm.
for sure. Um, I don't.
Yeah,
All
there's
right.
definitely someone out there that's going to let us
Yeah,
know.
there we go. We learned something on this episode. All right, let's see. That was Bruce D. Let's go to Michael Thompson, 8015. Tape method is the way to go if you can. Also, anytime you use your finger, you'll get a better result if you wet your finger in the water first. I assume you're applying caulk or.
Yeah, laying some kind of a silicone or caulking or something.
There you go.
And
Silicone's the word I was looking
yeah,
for.
I mean, I like the tape method. I mean, I guess it all depends. Um, because you could do if you do short enough spurts, then you can do it dry and make it look really, really good. So, um, it depends on what exactly you're doing. But yeah, if you've got an inside corner piece, tape's always going to be your friend. Or if you're doing in between two hatches, then you might be able to just go around it. And if you can lay a nice smooth line with the gun before you even touch it, then you can come through and just make short little passes with your finger, and you can even do it dry and make it look really, really clean. But yep, I mean, wetting your finger for sure. I think that's also something that takes practice. Once
Yeah,
the more you do, the better you get.
when I do it, I just get a big glob on my finger and I make a bigger mess than if I would have just taped it off and slowed down a little bit. It's also the methodical and the slow methodical. I struggle with that at times.
Patience.
Patience. There you go. Patience with my girls. I got an abundance of that. Patience with doing a project. I'm like, let's get this done. Let's get back out of the water. Come on now. So, but that I think that's something that is a lot of times forgotten. Taking care of a boat is, hey, you got to redo that from time to time. It gets dried out, cracked, and that can lead to bad things if you don't keep up with it.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Eric Sullivan, 3642, is a wrap comparable to new gel coat? I'll take the gel coat all day long. Gel coat or wrap? Mm-hmm. What kind of guy are you?
I mean, obviously I would take the gel coat, but for the cost, there's also a lot. I mean, I still like a wrap too. So, I think both have their. I mean, who doesn't like the look of a brand new, freshly waxed gel coat boat? I mean, especially if it's a pretty blue or like a good color. Like, who doesn't like that? There's no one that doesn't look at that and be like, oh man, with the water glistening off the side, like it looks beautiful. But then there's also a wrap where you can make it, whatever you want. You can make it. I mean, there's tons of really, really cool looking wraps out there, like with fish and logos and this and that. Like you can, you know,
Yeah, yeah. The ability to put your personality or your brand out there. I don't want to
hmm
say easy, but you didn't have that option before wraps became popular, and
mm
the you know the versatility of that. I think there's some cool stuff that you see out of the water that are wraps, but the perfectly polished gel coat, to me it's hard to beat. What if you did a wrap? If you did a wrap on the whaler, well, can you imagine wrapping your whaler? That's what you need. Paddling down the road or paddling down the canal with your newly wrapped whaler. What's that look like?
I painted it with a light blue all grip paint, so it's like really shiny and pretty right now.
Okay.
But I mean, honestly, I don't know. I mean, I think working with a graphic designer, I'm sure there'd be something really cool to come up with. But I'm also a fan of just a solid color, like just a solid, clean look. I mean, I do like that. The classic look to a boat, just the clean, shiny, rub rails looking right. Like I
Yeah.
like that.
I think I'm with you on that. I do like the gel coat, but the versatility of the wrap. Well, what's the coolest wrap that you've seen?
We did a wrap on that venture, or I pretty much watched them put the wrap on. Um, Wrap's done right, and I mean, that one had dolphin and fish all over it with a couple logos, so that one looked really, really clean. Um, but something else about a wrap, though, just thinking about it, is that you can take it off, so
Yeah.
you can change it at every other year if you wanted to. I mean, obviously the money's a factor, but you could change it whenever you want. You could also protect your gel coat. So let's say you buy a brand new boat and then you wrap it. Well, if you leave that wrap on there for 10, 15 years, when you take that wrap off, it's going to be a brand new boat underneath.
Yeah.
So there's a protection factor to a wrap as well, I guess you'd say.
Yeah, I like the idea of changing it out. I mean, it's almost like you got a brand new boat. You change the exterior
Yeah.
and it will look like a brand new boat. If you've even going from the gel coat to the wrap, you're like it doesn't look anything alike.
Right.
Change up your personality and all
hmm
that. That would be pretty cool. MX Racing Unlimited 7784. So what's the year, make, and model and size boat is it? Nice video. Those motors definitely look fun. What did you use for the reinforcement that are glassed in? Looked around PVC pipe. This might go with the other one. I should have pushed that
hmm
up. PVC pipe, the thicker one maybe, or is it pieces of wood?
Yeah, that's definitely on that. It's a 1985. I think it was a 31 Rybovich, and yeah, they were just that foam coring that was made as braces.
Okay. Was that the video where you had the flex in the transom? Is that
hmm
video?
Yep, yep. That Rival Runner, they really it wasn't designed. In 1985 they didn't have 300 horsepower Mercury racing
Yeah.
outboards,
Putting
with
that
a
a little more
bracket.
torque now, huh?
Yeah, so once I don't know what year they put a bracket on that boat, but before it had 250 OX66s, which are great engines, but yeah, once we put those, I mean the Mercury Racing 300 is very comparable weight wise to the OX66, but the torque factor is, I mean, it's ridiculously different. There's a lot of torque.
Yeah, people say like, oh, it's the same horsepower. There's, now that the weights come down on the four strokes,
hmm
I don't know if that argument that the the two strokes were more powerful. What do you think? Do you think the torque of the two stroke compared to what you're getting from like, that racing 300, are they comparable now, or is that argument still valid?
That's a heated question all in of itself. I
Come
mean,
on, Eric, take a stance. Come on. Don't be scared. Just take a stance.
I do, because I still love a two stroke. I mean, I like the smell of a two stroke. I like the sound of the two stroke, but um, and they are torquey. A two stroke is that it's instant power.
Yeah.
I mean, as soon as you hit that throttle, it is instant power, instant torque. But at the same time, that 300 race, I mean, that thing is instant power, instant torque. Like you hit that throttle down, it pins you in the seat. Like I don't know if you could. I mean, someone would have to do some tests to see. You'd have to put like a 250 on a 250 and two
Yeah.
stroke versus the race and see as far as whole shot and all that stuff. I don't know. I think they're pretty comparable. I don't think you can really tell. I don't think you could honestly say that the two stroke is more torquey than that 300R.
Yeah.
Um,
It's kind of like what popped into my head was like comparing a 68 Camaro to a Tesla. You're like,
mm-hmm.
hey, they both are going to put you back in your seat, but
Yep.
you can't, the feel and the rumble and of that Camaro is just going to be different than the zzz, you know.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. You definitely. I mean, there's always going to be something about a combustion engine, but there's also, I mean, electric is instant. It's. I mean, it's a motor. It's not an engine. It's
Right.
a windings and like it's instant. So when you hit that pedal, I mean, it is all that power straight to like. I mean, there's no lag. It's just boom, like you're out. Like. And that's kind of interesting too. I think there's actually somebody talking about
Oh,
some electric stuff too on the outboards.
I think it was asking the the thoughts on where is electric, is it going to take over, or is it a valid option? Um,
Mm-hmm.
do you like it? Are you are you on board? Like, hey, that seems like I think it's the direction thing. There we go. Um, the conversion about converting to electric power plants. Um, it's the way things are going to go. But what's your experience with, and what are your thoughts on it? Okay, we'll put you right
Um,
back into another controversial. You gotta take a stance here.
yeah, yeah, I don't mind it. I mean, I like it. I like the electric stuff. I don't know at what point in time that turn's going to happen, and I really don't see it taking over um, fully. It's never going to take over 100%. uh, at least not in the foreseeable future. Basically, because of diesels and stuff like that, you've still got boats that are going to need that torque of a diesel to move the weight and everything else. Whereas electric, yeah, you see it right now in the ski nautique, the wakeboard boat, and a lot of the. I think there's a 180
Yeah,
EV.
eVision Marine. I've
Right?
actually run that motor. I didn't drive the boat, but was on the boat that was running it. They're 180 horsepower. It's interesting. It's like you said. It's silent, but it's instant. I was on a down at IBEX, the International Boat Builders Expo in Tampa, 2 years ago, I think it was, and they had a 180 on it was a 24 pontoon that they were running down in Tampa, and there's probably 10 people on the boat, adults, and it got up and moved. I mean, it was quick. Now, when we got back,
Mm-hmm.
they plugged that sucker in right away because they were doing 15-minute demos every 45 minutes. But
Yep.
that's the question that I have or I think that's the limitation. When do we get to a point where you actually have some range at speed? And offshore, ugh, that
Mm-hmm.
that would make me nervous.
Yeah, that's definitely everybody's question is the range factor. I mean, you got range is what it's about. If you're cruising on the boat, now if you're on a sailboat and you've got solar and you've got wind and everything like that, and you're just putting along, making a travel, totally different
Yeah,
topic than somebody that's wanting to go. 150 miles to go fishing and then 150 miles back. So that might run, 340 miles over the trip. That's, where, or people that are making runs to the Bahamas, or, to these oil rigs, or just, a range. When you're hitting a range that you just don't have it with electric yet. And you definitely don't have the speed either. You're not doing, I mean, well, now obviously the standard's totally different when you've got like Freemans that are doing 70 miles an hour for, you know, quick trips. Like people are, hopping on their boat at 7 in the morning doing 70 miles, 75 miles an hour in their 40-foot center console all the way to the Bahamas. And it takes them an hour and a half to get there.
Yep.
So, that's a totally different subject. Whereas most of these electric boats, they're doing 30s, 40s. There was that one, I think it might have been E-Vision or whatever, that made the race boat, and that thing did 100.
Yep.
So obviously it's there, but it's not there yet. Like it's coming, but it's not there. And then all those boats are 20, 25 feet long.
Right.
You don't have a 45-foot boat, let alone what they're making now, 60-foot center consoles with 4 600s on them. Um, it's not there. You're not going to get that yet.
Yeah, I think there's two things that pop into my head. One is, if you're going to be running it at slow speeds, low RPMs, okay, now you've got the 180 that they had 2 years ago. I'm sure they made some improvements. I think the run time was 5 hours, but that was at
Mm-hmm.
2,500 RPM. That's different than we were running at 5,000 RPM with 10 people on the boat. And then the second
Mm-hmm.
is, what's the infrastructure look like? If you keep the boat
Right.
on your own personal dock, okay, but I don't know if I see charging stations at the marina. I don't know.
Right.
That's
Yeah.
a big one that I think needs to get figured out too.
Oh, and technicians. When
Yeah,
something breaks, who's going
yeah,
to work on it?
yeah.
Like, so there's a whole,
I didn't even
it,
think
it,
about that
it,
side of it. Yeah, that's a whole nother, like,
yeah.
it's different than working on a Tesla where you got it up on a rack.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah. And, when you're just out in the middle of a lake in the middle of, Georgia or whatever, you know, you can find somebody to work on a fuel injected Mercury or Yamaha or even, Honda, whatever. I mean, there's somebody they'll be able to figure that out. I
yep,
mean, now it's a little bit more difficult with computers and stuff like that, where, depending on if you've got a code where you need a computer to plug in to figure out what's wrong with it because there's a code. It's not like, oh, just clean the carburetor, or, swap out an injector, or, oh, you got a bad pencil coil or something like that, where it's like, people are going to figure that out. But still, by and large, no matter where you're at, you'll find somebody within, a few miles or so that can fix your engine,
yeah.
and
And
gets you back on the water.
if you've got some mechanical ability, there's still
Mm-hmm.
some stuff that you can do on your own engine. It's not like jumping into your two-stroke where, okay,
Mm-hmm.
I see what's going on here. I get it. You open up the cowling on a new Yamaha show and you're like, I don't even see anything. I don't see
Yeah.
anything that I recognize. It's all hidden
Yep.
and back behind. Like if it's not a fuel line,
Yep.
but I don't know what I'm looking at.
For most DIYers, they got the confidence to take the intake off, to take the shrouds off, and
Yeah.
then you'll see it's still just a combustion engine under there. It's just sensors on everything because it's all electronically controlled to increase fuel economy and lighten the weight and do all these, things that people want. Whereas the electric side of things, now it's an electric motor. And I where that technology is going to go, and how people are going to be able to service it, technicians, and can you DIY that? It's I don't know. I don't really think there's that many people that have a Tesla that are
Yeah.
DIYing, taking taking the
That's a
thing
good point.
apart to like figure something out. It's new yet still.
Yeah. Well, that's the, I mean, what, 10 years, maybe 12. I don't know when, like what was it? The first one that came out. But yeah, it is in its infancy. In the next 10 years, I think we'll see some advancements. But yeah, there's
Oh
a
yeah.
lot to figure out in the boating world that that's different than being on land. Being on land,
Mm-hmm.
where hey, it's safe. If you break down on land, you're okay.
Yeah.
You break down on the
Yeah.
water, even on a bigger lake,
Mm-hmm.
could get dicey.
Yeah. Most places on land you still have cell service.
Yeah,
Whereas
yeah. I
some
didn't.
places on water you don't have. You're out there at the mercy.
Yeah,
And one storm away from being flipped over.
yeah, yeah. That gets a little scary. So we'll see. We'll check back in 10 years. We'll see where we're at.
Yeah.
So,
Right.
any experience with the Niz Pro Supercharger for the Yamaha shows? Have a 250 on my 26 Suncatcher Elite, that a pontoon, upgrading to the 200 to a upgrading the 250 to a 450 seems like an attractive option. You any experience with that?
Not a whole lot. I mean, I've seen the Niz Pros. I don't have a ton of experience for it. I mean, once you start doing stuff like that, though, you are like, it's a whole different ball game. You're taking, what do you say? He's got a 250 and he's going to turn it into a 450. So like, it's you're going to wear out the engine quicker. Put it that way. Like, you're taking a 250 and making it do a 450 stuff. So you're going to wear out the engine sooner. But I mean, yeah, while it works, that's going to be, you're going to be rolling. I mean, you got a 450 horsepower show with a supercharger. Like, you're going to be balling. But how long will they last? That I don't know too much about longevity and how many hours can you get out of the engine now and that kind of stuff. So
I
I
think
mean, I
you're
kind of look at it like, huh?
my thought is like your common sense says if they built it for 250 horsepower, maybe that same block is probably what 300. I don't know on the Yamahas for sure, but it, it wasn't designed to handle that hard of running. Um, you're going to cut the life in half, I would think. That
Mm-hmm.
you're going to be balling for you're going to be balling for 5 years instead of
Yeah.
15, something like that.
I'm I'm just looking up. Okay, so looks like a Suncatcher 26 Elite is a looks like it's a pontoon boat.
Yeah, yeah, it's
So
a pretty nice pontoon boat.
yeah, I mean, I guess I mean, what exactly are you
What
trying
what are you doing
to
on your
achieve
pontoon
here?
that you need 450? That's what you're thinking, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, well, the way I kind of look at it is like, you've got you got a Ford Ranger and you got a Ford F-350. Yeah, you can jack the Ranger up and put it, do all this stuff and put all this fancy equipment on it and, make it like a big truck, but it's still not a big truck.
Yeah,
You know, now you're trying to make this little truck do big truck things. And how long is that going to last?
yeah.
Yeah, you can do it and yeah, it'll work, but how long is that going to work? That's what I'm kind of like, you know, it totally depends on your wallet, really.
Well,
Because I mean,
true.
if money's not a problem,
Yeah.
then all
Your
day,
your
baby, jack
warranty's
that
out the
thing up.
window. Like day one, warranty's out
Yeah.
the window as soon as you do that upgrade. But
Oh yeah.
you're down there, but you grew up in freshwater on lakes. There's something to be
Hmm.
said for being on a pontoon and passing a Formula or a Baja or something like that. That
Oh
feeling,
yeah.
you're like, you give them a little wave and they're like, what is going on here? That's not right.
For sure. For sure. But you got to pay for that. Like if it, like for sure, I'm all about the feeling and the experience and yeah, you know if it's in the budget,
Yeah.
then go for
I
it.
was at the
But
I was at the Charlotte Boat Show this year, and there was a oh shoot, I want to say it might have been a Berkshire pontoon, twin 600 Mercs on it was
mhm,
28-foot pontoon or something like that.
yep,
It's like,
yep.
what is going on in this world? Things have gone crazy.
I know. I know. We're an 80-mile-an-hour pontoon boat. Like,
Yeah,
yeah, I remember the first year when they first came out with a 600. Like, that was the first thing. Like, it wasn't a few months later, but Bennington had one on the back of the boat like it's
Uh-huh.
on a pontoon boat. It's like, I don't know, you know.
Well, and even the center consoles down there, I mean, three, you used to see a triple and you're like, wow, that's something. But
Mm-hmm.
now, like if you
Oh,
don't have
yeah.
trips, like, come on, man. What's going on?
Oh, yeah.
What's the most you've run?
5.
Five? Is it just I
Yep.
mean, is it amazing? I've not run anything that big.
Yeah, you know, it is. I mean, you're in a center console doing 65 miles an hour, 70 miles an hour. It's, you know, it's, I mean, it's cool, you know. I mean, the fastest I've ever been on a boat was 113.
Oh, no
So,
kidding.
or no, 114. So, you know, it's a different feeling. It's it's great,
Were you
but
running it?
you gotta, huh?
Were you running it?
No, I wasn't running. I was riding. And but yeah, you know, it's you get your head up into the wind, and it's you realize, because when you're sitting in the boat, you don't realize you're doing 100 until you stick your face in the wind. Then you're like, oh my gosh, you know, we're scooting, you
We
know.
are
Like,
smoking here.
but
That's
but
what was it? What was the boat?
that one was a 35 motion.
Okay. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that's I've got a buddy of mine that races tunnel hauls like
Mm-hmm.
200, 210 in a
That's
little,
insane.
he's crouched down in there.
Yep. Yep.
Andy, I don't know how you do that, man. That's insane to me. I,
Yeah.
I'm a laid back, like, hey, let's just get this thing up on plane and let's cruise. I like that style,
Mm-hmm.
but it would be fun to get out there and just put the hammer down and 113. Ah,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think. I mean, you know, I'm used to a pontoon boat. You know, a pontoon boat was always built for you to load up 15 people
mm-hmm.
and putt around. You know, like putt around all the canals and hang out on the boat. But you know, now, you know, I guess like you're saying, you know, so if he does a 450 and he's only using the boat on a lake and only putting, you know, 100 hours a year on the engine, then yeah, you know, now he's got this sleeper 250 that, like you said, he sees the formula and he can smoke it up to 85 miles an hour. Like,
That's a good point. You
yeah,
meet somebody at the restaurant, and you're like, "Hey, let's get out there and race a little bit." Yeah, I like the
yep,
sleeper
yep.
idea of it. That makes me laugh. Like they never saw it coming.
No, they never, because you know, you can't tell. But yeah, so you know, if that's what you're doing with it, then go for it. But if you're still in the mindset of, you know, you put all this money into this boat and you want it to last you 10 years, 15 years,
Yeah.
and not put any money into it, like, you know, for one, your lower unit's going to take a beating. Like,
Oh yeah.
that's, and you're going to have to change out the props and all that stuff. But if it's in the budget, you know, that's what you want, then go for it. Like, that's,
I like that idea of just a sleeper 450 under. You got 200 horsepower. They have no idea about.
yeah,
You're just busted by everybody. Oh, that yeah.
that's
That
kind of
that might be
different than
worth
they
it
do
right
down
there.
here.
That makes me smile a lot. I like
Yeah,
that.
I mean, down here they take like 250s and they put 450 stickers on there. That's what they do down here. They don't even change anything on the
When you're
engine.
at the
They just put
sandbar,
this.
yeah. When you're at the sandbar,
Yeah,
nobody knows. They have no idea.
yep, that's right. That's what they do down here. I mean, they paint them and then they put, you know, big numbers on there.
That's funny. That's funny. That's a real thing down there.
Oh yeah, all over the place, like all over. I mean, I think a lot of it is um cowlings, like they just swap out the cowlings.
Yeah.
But then there's a lot of them that, yeah, they paint their cowlings and they got like a 250 Verado and then they put a 400 sticker on there
Yeah,
just to
that's easy to get a
just to,
sticker. Yes. Hey,
yeah,
I got to tell you,
yeah.
stickers are way cheaper than a 400 Racing Merc.
Yep, yep, for sure. Too funny.